Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is a brave soul that is here to tell us why she is not voting for Trump or Harris. She is going third party. I know that can be quite controversial in this election, which is only 2 days away. But I wanted to bring someone on to sort of explain their thinking. And this is a person who's near and dear to me, and she has some strong feelings. So without further ado, this is my friend B Plaza. B, tell the people who you are, why you're, where you live, just a little background about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Brooke. I am always excited to talk to you. You are like one of my favorite people, and just like you're so well versed and educated that every conversation I engage with you, I always take something away. And so, yeah, my name is Beatrix Jackson Plaza. I know my husband would be happy to see that I just put my name unhyphenated there. But I am currently living in Richmond, Virginia. Virginia is an interesting state right now. When I was here for the last election, so in 2020, when Biden was elected, there were signs everywhere. Like, if it was either Trump or it was Biden, like people were very open with where they were going and how they were voting. And I can tell you right now, in the area of Virginia I am in, there are very few signs. I don't know if it's because people are unhappy with both choices. I secretly think people are going to silently vote for Trump and they're just not broadcasting. But we'll have to see if Virginia goes red or blue this election season.
So there are no signs like for either party that you're seeing, not Harris,
I'm
not.
not even seeing either party so much. I mean, I can tell you just from on the route that I travel, I have seen more Harris Waltz signs, but not even Harris Waltz so much as the Democratic, like the local nominees for the Democratic Party. Right now, I think it's Ho who is running for, and I have to double check this. I know. Yeah, I think it's Ho who's running for a local election right now. And I've seen more signs for him, which I feel is indicative of how people are going to vote. He's a Republican. There's a couple of people who are like proud Trumpers and they're out there, but like it's been kind of quiet in terms of people putting out where they're voting.
That's so interesting because I would think that if people were very pro-Trump or pro-Harris, definitely
Mhm.
pro-Trump in your area, why aren't they as vocal as they were before? Like, actually, to me, even though you say you think people are going to secretly vote for Trump, I'm thinking if they were voting and proud about it beforehand and now they're not posting signs, that's an indication that they're probably not going to vote for him this time around.
I don't know.
No,
Mm.
well, I know one thing: you're not voting for him, and you're not voting for Harris. Who are you actually voting for this election?
I am going to vote for Jill Stein. I'm going to vote for Jill Stein, and her running mate is he goes by Butch Ware. His name is Rudolph Butch Ware the third, actually, and they are nominees for the Green Party. I am a registered Democrat only because my father made me do it, and it was really upset that yeah,
He's
he
a
wanted me.
Republican.
My father was a registered Republican. And my mother was a registered Democrat, and the two of them would always cancel each other's votes out, which I know, like, whatever. That was generally how they voted. And in the, I think it was, I think 2012, I became eligible to vote. And I went and was it, man, I feel like I'm going way back into the archives. But I went to register and I said I wanted to register and as an independent. My father and I had this big fight and he said, "You can't do this. Like, I'm a Republican. You should be a Republican. I will accept if you're a Democrat." So I am a registered Democrat because I had to pick a party at that point in my life. But I've never voted along party lines. Last year, I voted for Joe Jorgensen, who is also like a third party candidate.
What was he running for?
Joe was running for she was running for president
Okay.
against Biden. So I did not vote for Biden in the last
Oh, you
election
said
either.
the last. I thought you said last election, as in like 2 years ago. Okay, so you
No,
didn't vote for Biden. You didn't vote for either party. You went third party last time. Have you
yep.
ever voted for a mainstream candidate? I bet I know one.
Barack Obama was the last. Yeah, he was the last mainstream candidate I voted for.
So then, with Hillary and Trump, who did you vote for then?
I voted for Hillary. Oh, so I guess I did.
Okay.
No. Yes, I did. I voted for Hillary. No, I voted for Hillary.
It's all a
Did I
blur.
vote for
I
Hillary?
know.
Look at you. You're bringing it back. Yeah, you're
Right?
making me think back. I know for this last one I voted for Joe. This one I'm voting for Jill. I can't remember if I voted for Hillary or if I voted for um
Jill again?
what was her name?
Jill? Did you vote for Jill back then?
I didn't. I think it was Gabbard. Was that her name?
You did
She
not
was
vote.
from Hawaii.
No, that, and I think she was last election, the last presidential election, because she's the one who kind of jugged Harris in the in the debates and kind of knocked her out. So
Yeah, then I voted for Hillary. I think oh, no, I didn't. You know who I voted for? Oh, no, he dropped. I wanted to vote for Bernie. Look at you're activating core memories that I haven't thought about in so long.
I'm gonna need you
I
to think
wanted to
about.
vote for Bernie, but Bernie didn't actually make the ballot, so I wrote Bernie's name in. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I wrote him in.
Okay, so at least, and I say this because you actually have a history of not voting mainstream. Like, this is not just something you're doing
Oh,
approaching.
no. Yeah,
You actually, half of the time you're going third party.
mhm.
So why did you decide? Because obviously you have gone mainstream. Why did you decide to go third party this time, especially in light of one of the candidates?
I mean, like Trump, like I personally think he's slightly unhinged.
Lightly?
I definitely think he is influenced by Elon Musk, who like I have a whole I mean, if you want to go down the conspiracy theory route, I can definitely take you down there.
Put a
Um,
pin in that. We're gonna put a pin in Elon because he is the whole thing.
he's a whole thing. But I think Trump at his core is definitely a misogynist. I know he's an elitist. There's been so much argument around is he a white supremacist? Like, is he racist? Like I can't say what a person is or is not, and I don't want to, no defamation of character for anyone, but I
He's a public
definitely
figure, so you'd have to show malice and all that. It's all.
okay, great. Thank you for knowing all of my legal rights. I definitely think that yeah, he is definitely going to be like white male forward, which is like not something that appeals to my demographic. And again, like I know we're not going to talk about Elon, but I don't like their relationship. Elon is a climate change denier. I believe in climate change. I think that we are experiencing a lot of changes in our world because of climate change. I mean, I remember reading a message from the Windward Islands and they were like, "Hey guys, y'all are screwing us up over here because we're the ones getting all this devastations from the hurricanes and we're not even making this mess." And I mean it's true. Um and okay, I'm going to go just a little tiny conspiracy, just tiny.
No. I want you to set up why you're not voting for both.
What
Because right now I'm hearing, okay, what I'm hearing, I'll let you finish, is that this person is particularly problematic. So then it's like, well, then why not vote for the competitor? We'll get to that, but continue on with your Elon Musk.
One of the things that Trump has repeatedly said is he's going to let the states decide. He's going to decentralize some of his authority, it seems, from the federal government. And I think about that in terms of like tax implications. And I think about that in terms of funding for education, which, I care about a lot. I've been in education since 2008. So like in a couple of years, I will have been in this sector for 20 years. And I've seen it evolve. And, I know, women's rights and pro-life and pro-choice and my body, my choice, all those things, let the states decide. That's freaking Trump's platform. But if we decentralize everything, then we're also going to decentralize funding. And I don't know that we've had enough conversation about what the impact of that would be. Maybe for a state like California that has, the Silicon Valley and lots of tech money in it, it might be okay. But like, you can't tell me that a state like Arkansas or a state like Mississippi is going to be in the same boat.
So what is problematic about the fact that you would have a decentralized government? Why is that something that's coming up in your calculation?
Well, that funding is going to have to be supplemented some way. And what I'm imagining with someone like Elon Musk, and even though Bezos has been quiet, but someone like Bezos or Bill Gates, they've also been quiet. I can imagine them like leasing out a state for a certain amount of time and supplying that money for factories. So I can imagine Elon saying, "All right, like don't worry about it, Mississippi. I'm going to take a 2-year lease and supplement the funding that you need for education. And I'm going to build my new Tesla headquarters here and this, that, and this." And, like they'll work it out, but I
Right.
can see it becoming like a new change of, like almost like currency in a way. I can see them sort of decentralizing it to the states, and then the states getting private investors or private funders, and these privateers being Elon Musk's and Bill Gates. And I'm sure there's all sorts of other people who might have like a incentive to get involved in a setup like this. But again, let's pin that. But this is all
Well,
hypothetical.
I don't think that's crazy to think that decentralizing the government is going to inure it to the benefit of the wealthy. It's just interesting because I don't even know Trump. I think is about Trump and about amassing personal power, and so I don't know if he fully thought about anything, but definitely about the implications about decentralizing. Because, like, that's less power for you as the president. And I think you
Mhm.
kind of want to control everything. And so I think he's just
Really
saying
cares? Like you said, it's all about ego for him. And so, as long as he gets to be president and tout America's power and it's coming from him, like, I don't really think he's having those long-term thoughts. And that's also why I am voting. And I encourage other people who are disappointed with both of these candidates to vote third party, is because I'm thinking about the long run. I'm not thinking about the immediacy. And I think that's part of Americans' problems in general, is like we are so fixed on immediacy and just wanting things to happen and change right now that we're not thinking about the long run.
So then, okay, so I can tell why you have many good reasons or reasons why you're not voting for Trump. So why not Harris? If you see him as being this very problematic person, and this is a close race for reasons beyond me why these two are very close. They are. Why not Harris? Just even independent, I guess, of the closeness of their race. Why are you voting for her?
Okay, before we jump into Harris, I want to correct what I said before about our Republican candidate for the Senate for Virginia. His name, it came to me, is Hung Cao, and he's Vietnamese. He was a former Navy captain. So whatever I spoke before, he's the GOP primary that's challenging our Democratic incumbent, Kane. I think I think his name is Tim Kaine. And so, yeah, I'm sorry for misspeaking, and I think I said his name was Hao before, but it's Hung Cow. I just like married them in my head. But yeah, I've seen a lot of signs for Cow, which to me, he has a lot of support from Trump. So I think those will be Trump voters. I think people this year are like putting out their Senate votes, instead of like just being clear about wanting to vote for Trump. But for Kamala, you remember when we first started talking about candidates I know you do. And I was like, what about Kamala Harris? I'm excited about Kamala.
Well, and I can tell you why I have kind of shifted. There's been practical reasons, and then I also think she's just matured as a candidate. But go ahead. It's not about me right now.
I know it's not about you right now. I mean, I definitely think she has stepped into her own a little bit more than she did while she was a vice president in terms of being culture forward. But she's not for me, man. How you just get a vibe off of someone. And again, people who are voting, you should really look at policies. You should look at what you care about. You shouldn't vote off a vibe. I'm going to tell you, I'm voting off a vibe. I'm voting off a vibe, but pause.
Vibes. We're doing vibes over here.
And she did not pass my vibe check, girl. She didn't.
That's okay. Keep going because I it's a vibe thing. It's a vibe, such a vibrant. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
She didn't pass my vibe check. I don't think I mean,
What what does that mean? Explain that to somebody who's like, "What are you talking about? A vibe check?" You have to explain what does that mean.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the very frontline thing that I think a lot of people pull on when they're like, "Oh, I'm not gonna vote for Kamala," and it's because she hasn't had a strong stance in this war on Gaza. All right, that's one of my main reasons, right? Like,
So that's
there
not
have
a
been a lot of opportunity for Miss Harris to say, "When I become president, we will stop this war in Gaza. I will ally with Israel. I will ally with Palestine, and we will make sure that what is happening is no longer happening." There are many opportunities. That was part of the Biden administration. I am not Biden. That's Biden's war. Even if it isn't, she could have said that. And I might have been like, all right, I'm a little bit more hopeful for you. She's never said that. Uh, I think that she could take a stronger stance. I believe that it is ethnic cleansing. I feel very strongly that what is happening in Gaza is a human rights crisis. Netanyahu is a war criminal, as far as I am concerned, and I think that she should have a stronger stance against it, and she doesn't, and she has not vocalized it. Um, I I feel from my vibe check, and again, this is just based on how I feel that both candidates, Trump and Harris, will sell us out. But Trump will say, "Oh, I sold us for a great deal. Look at this, and everything is good." I feel like Harris will do it behind closed doors and act like it never happened. I think that like
Well,
I
let
think
me ask you this. Do you think there's any politician that at some point is not doing that? Like even if Jill Stein got in, you think she wouldn't get to a point where she has to would appear to us because obviously for them they may not view it as selling us out. They may view it as I did what was in the best interest because I have a lot more information than you all have.
oh, yeah,
Do you think
absolutely.
that Jill would get to a point where she's not selling us out too? Like I feel like that's
Well,
you're
let
gonna
me
make
be
somebody
clear.
unhappy at some
I
point.
am not voting for Jill under the pretense she is going to win. I know she's not going to win. I am voting for Jill because I want Jill and the Green Party. Like if I could coalesce with a bunch of people and we could all figure it out for any independent, I would put my votes to that because what I'm looking for is for a shift in this bipartisan dynamic. If we can get 5% of American voters voting for a third party candidate, then that third party candidate will be on the debate stage in the next election cycle. And
Just
I think that's
5%.
needed.
Just
Just
5% would do.
just 5%, which is like nothing when you think about it. And now I know that the narrative is if you vote for Stein, then you're pulling away a vote from Harris. That's not true. I could be pulling away a vote from Trump. Like,
Well, you're not voting for like the idea is that if you obviously don't like Trump.
I
So
do not.
really you're not voting for him under any circumstance.
No,
You really would be a vote for Harris if but for you being pulled away from Stein. So then it is in a sense, so the argument goes, you're not voting for Harris because this third party is there pulling your vote away. Like
no, I'm
because if
not
there was
voting.
no
I
third
wouldn't vote for Harris, period. I didn't vote for Biden
so
last
if there was
election.
no third party, would you just abstain? Is that what you're saying?
I might. I might. I am not going to vote because I have to vote and my hand is pushed. I'm going to vote because I want to vote and I believe my vote counts. And in this sense, my vote is going for a third party, not because I am under any belief that this person is going to win. Like I know she's not going to win, but my hope is that in the next election cycle, there will be someone who is actually willing to talk about politics. I mean, did you listen to the debate in last month in September? They like
Between
talked about nothing. It was, I mean, granted, it was the vice president debate. So it was Waltz and it was
Vance.
Waltz and it was Vance, right? And I will say, like, Vance was very charismatic. He had great answers, but like they really didn't hit on a lot of issues. And their debate was better than Harris and Trump's debate the couple of months prior to that, which was like almost painful to watch. Also, can we
You
talk
thought
about
that
how
Hillary,
Harris
you
was so
thought
washed out? She was so white looking in on my screen, at least.
well, maybe
In
you would balance your TV. You know what I mean? That may be a color balance issue
maybe
because I didn't have that kind of critique. But you think that it was painful to watch the Harris and Trump debate.
Yeah, they didn't talk about anything of substance at all. Nothing I cared about. They
Well,
talked hypothetical. Imagine Stacey getting on the train to get her abortion and having to travel.
is
Okay.
that hypothetical though? Is that
I
really a
mean,
hypothetical? I feel like
yes, it
that's
is. Like,
happening.
do you know that Stacey is going to get on the train sitting next to a stranger and be all uncomfortable? Listen, I am pro-choice. Like, I have terminated in my life when I was not ready. It was my own choice. Like, I support that. I do not support late term abortion. I'm sorry. If you don't know by 20 weeks, like, that's a bigger problem. Like, you should be able to figure it out within a month whether or not this is something you want to do. Within 2 months, now you're at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depending on how you count, right? You don't need 20 weeks plus to figure out if this is going to be the right situation for you. And again, medical abortion because you're sick or the baby's sick is a total different circumstance and shouldn't even be talked about. Like, if the mother is at risk, her health is at risk, this shouldn't even be on the table. Like,
But
that's
that is something that is on the table, and it's on the table because of Trump. I have another friend who was dealing with one of those situations where it's an ectopic, and it was like she has to wait because
Mhm,
of the Trump policy, the Trump court that
mhm.
overturned Roe. So to me, it's not a hypothetical to bring up these scenarios. You had a teacher recently; she died because the doctors were afraid to terminate what was not a
I
viable
know. I
uh,
wrote about her.
pregnancy anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, these are these absurd, tragic consequences of Trump
Mhm.
policies, Trump's appointments. He'll be able to appoint more people. So I don't think it's hypothetical. I don't think that was something that we should have done. I didn't have a problem with that coming up in the debate because I think that should actually be central. It's like this is what he's doing. He is rolling back, putting
No.
people into place to roll back policies, important
Trump,
policies,
I mean,
and not to mention his stance on civil rights and all that. But it's just kind of like I think that is something that should have been raised and centered at the debate.
I think it could have had a much smaller chunk of the debate only because, one, Trump doesn't have a strong stance on it. Like, he's so fickle. I mean, him even being like, they'll terminate the baby after the baby is born. Like, you're obviously crazy. Like, that's not even a thing that you could
That's
do.
called murder.
Yes, I understand what
It's
he
like
was doing, but, like, also Trump, I have a really hard time taking Trump seriously.
me
And I
too.
know
Me too. But people do. People take him very seriously, and that's
I,
the problem.
I, he's a mess, but Harris should be better than that. She really should be.
She is better than that. I think she is better than that. To
Mm,
me, she's better enough to vote for.
no, you hear what you said? You put a qualifier in there, and that is the problem. You said
What?
she's better enough.
Well, I'm saying compared to Jill, I think she's a viable candidate by herself. I mean, in an ideal world, I don't even know if I've ever saw a candidate where I'm like, I love everything about you. But that's like never going to happen because this is like trying to find a partner. You're not going to find somebody that you love everything about. Like, there's going to be something that's going to bother you. You're just never going to have a perfect candidate because we're not perfect people. Um, but I think when you have the option of Jill, who's also, if she were elevated to the second candidate with the two-party system, you would find a lot of flaws too with her policies and practices. I just think that what Trump poses to me is a existential crisis for this country. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. Like
Mhm.
literally last time he lost, he sent people to the Capitol and it was an a coup attempt.
Is
And
this gonna happen
people
this
have right. People downplay him. It's like he quite literally is ready to destroy the democracy. You cannot vote for him. You may not like Harris, and I know this is it. You may not like Harris, right? You may have a problem with how she's handling her positions in Gaza, and I think that is a valid concern. That's a policy. That's not a vibe check. That's
time?
actually a hardcore policy and an important issue. Um, but having no democracy or being so destabilized, as if this country has not had a civil war before, as if that is not a possibility, to allow him to just freely come in and do that, I think that is something that we really need to seriously consider because we're talking about what may happen. What happens if the country is at war with itself again? Because it happened before. I don't think people are really considering that because we don't think that that's a possibility, but I'm terrified that it actually
It
is.
definitely is a possibility. It definitely is a possibility, but I also think that the tension is from us being so left or right. I think the tension is from us being so central to red or blue.
So,
And
but
I
you're not going to change that with the, or you could say that's not, is that going to change by voting for Jill Stein?
eventually, if enough people do it, if enough people are like, hey, these two options don't work out for me. I actually believe something different. And I'm actually going to put my vote behind someone who is representing something different for me. Eventually, that something different will be lifted up to be an actual option for people to consider when it comes to voting. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, like, I'm going to be honest, and this sounds really bad because I am Black and I am female. Um, and I, like maybe I should be behind Kamala because she is brown and a female, right? But if misogynistic beliefs did somehow creep into my ear, and I want to quote for anybody who is listening or watching this, I am married to a Marine. You might see the cap up there. In the back is, look at this, mirroring. In the back is my father's picture, who's also military. So like I live in like uh, a very military forward household. Like we fly an American flag in front of my house, so you already know, right? But let's just say a little bit of those beliefs might have crept into my ear and got me thinking. How do we think international powers would react to America if Kamala Harris was our president elect?
You're saying what would people do if there was a woman, a Black woman that was president of the United States? Would they
Let's say let's
treat us like we
talk
get treated in?
Russia, let's talk China, let's talk Korea.
Well,
I'm
I
not
mean,
saying that Trump is a better option as a leader to interface with these international powers, but I do believe the people that we have the most potential for conflict with right now are also very misogynist in their thinking. And I do not know how they would take direction from Kamala or it, I don't know what international diplomacy would look like and if it would be any better with her than with Trump.
well,
You
I
know,
think the difference for me, at least, between the two of them is Trump seems to be in their pocket. Like he's very friendly with Putin. I'm a little concerned. I think that they may control him, which is
mhm,
worse than ignoring or being disrespectful to. Because we Black women, we're used to that kind of.
mhm, mhm,
Unfortunately, we're used to people presuming that we're incompetent, that we're weak. That's just something, unfortunately, that she's going to have a burden that she's going to have to overcome. And I feel like if she's made it all the way to the presidency, she can do
mhm,
that. She knows how to work that. She knows how to have to, as you say, staff your weaknesses. Because it's
mhm,
not just her, just her. It's her whole cabinet and administration that can go and work. She can put a man if she needs to as a secretary of state or whatever.
mhm,
But I feel like I'd rather have somebody who people initially, because they may change,
mhm,
initially disrespect versus someone who I suspect they may have in their pocket, like Trump. Like
mhm,
I don't, you
mhm,
know what I mean? Who they know is not going to say anything against them. I'd rather have somebody who has not been compromised or who does not have the appearance of being compromised and can do diplomacy because there ain't no diplomacy going if
There's no diplomacy going.
it's just a puppet person that's
Mm-mm,
there. So I don't know. I feel like again, that's not enough to not vote, at least for me, for the third party. Because really it seems like the issue is a collective action problem here with
mhm,
the third party option, which is that you're right. A lot of people are unhappy, I suspect, with
mhm,
having two candidates. They want somebody else. Although I suspect too that um, Vice President Harris's campaign ignited a lot of people and sort of made them excited in the same way that Obama did. Nevertheless, I think in general people are unhappy with the two-party system, but no one's doing like you and voting third party because they feel like, well, I don't want to throw my vote away and then let the person who I oppose come in. So how do you, this is my question to you, how do you fix that collective action problem? Because simply voting, you've been doing that on and off for years, it's not really shifted majorly. How do we overcome that collective action problem?
I think we have to talk about it more, and I am grateful for this platform because, like, I know people are gonna disagree with my stance. Like, I know that I'm gonna have to talk to folks around why I'm making the decision I'm making, but I know in my heart the decision I am making is my own decision, and where I feel and what I want is for there to be more opportunity for diversity in our candidate platforms. And just to, even if a third party candidate doesn't win for another 2 or 3 decades, if we can get one on stage to push our Republicans and to push our Democrats in their projection of themselves, help people have a different perspective just by hearing questions or rebuttals, or someone having just like a broader sense of policy on that campaign stage, I think is powerful. And I think it'll only happen if there are people who are strong enough to break away from this bipartisan system. And I hear you, Brooke, like, trust me, like, I know that first off, I believe that narrative, a vote for Jill Stein is a vote away from Kamala, is a fear tactic used to keep people from voting for a third party. But I also know that there is risk that my one vote is one vote less for Harris, although it's not one vote more for Trump, but it's also one vote less for Trump too. And I know people are thinking, oh, well, if you weren't voting for Stein, you would vote for Harris. Probably not. Um, maybe I wouldn't vote. No, I would never not vote, but maybe I would write in Bernie's name again. Like I still say, like, I'm sorry, Bernie, we're sorry, we couldn't get it together. And I know, like, some people are like, oh, he's a socialist. There's a Marxist that's voted that you could vote for right now too, which is a lot like socialism in a way. But there are lots of people that have lots of beliefs and really understand that most Americans are middle to lower class. I think there's also a big class issue that we're not talking about here in terms of like who's voting for which candidate and why. Like, I think I am firmly in like the lower to middle class group, but it's a struggle. Like, things are expensive. Like,
Yeah.
things have to change. And, we need more tax breaks for the middle class. We need more incentives for the middle class. I mean, food is incredibly expensive. I care a lot about our education system, and I live in a pretty decent town, but like, there's still things that I would want in my public school for that my high school student attends that I that just aren't there. And I just I think there was a narrative when we came up that if you worked hard and you did all of the things, everything was going to fall in place for you, right? And I definitely worked hard, and
But
I
that was always
definitely,
a lie. But
huh?
that was always a lie. That's the lie, regardless of
The
who's.
American dream is a lie.
Oh
Is
my
that what you're
gosh!
saying?
How, as a Black person in America, we know that's a lie. We're like, work hard. Our ancestors was working really hard, and you know what they got? Bondage. And and then when you finally release them, they got terrorized by
Yeah.
the Klan when they were trying to incorporate as citizens into the country during Reconstruction. And then after that, you know, I got Jim Crow. So
Yep.
no, the idea of the American dream has always been, because it can't, but you have to have the American dream. You have to keep that kind of as like the carrot
That
and the stick.
aspiration as a key, yeah, a qualifier for
But
you to keep
so
going.
everyone's striving and adding to
Yeah.
production.
I
But
thought the American dream would be realized in my lifetime, right? Like, I went to the best schools, I had the best grades, and I feel like I've achieved the level of achievement that I wanted in my life. I'm like, I want to make, 6 figures, I'll be good. No, but BITCH, I want to say it.
thank you
I
for that.
make all those things, and it's still like paycheck to paycheck. I have a director's title, and I still am like, damn, like when am I gonna get paid again? I shouldn't feel like that. I
Right.
shouldn't I
No.
shouldn't be looking for my next paycheck like that. We bought a house, we have the cars, we have a little fence. I got my like little half homesteading thing going on, got my chickens in my garden and all that stuff.
And
And
adorable children, just adorable, the cutest.
but it's still a challenge. It's still really hard. And it's just like, as soon as you get a little bit in, there's something else pushing you back. Um, and I think that's a reality for way more people than than people talk about.
But I think that's why, for some people, even more so, it's important for them when they vote to have their vote count. So how then do you convince someone? I mean, like yourself, who's struggling, and like, I can't vote for somebody. It's a throwaway vote. I know
Mhm.
we're trying to prove something, but I need somebody. I know it's going to be one of these two, and I don't like this one over here, so I have to go and support this one. Like,
No,
how do you convince someone like that who's just
because
feeling
that's
like,
not what voting is about. I know that we're in this situation where it feels like I have to pick the lesser of two evils. And I hear you. And if someone was like, which one is the lesser of two evil, I could easily identify it would be Harris. Like, I don't want you to think that I can't identify that, but she is not my choice. I
but
think,
go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead. No. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say, I heard today, it's like instead of framing it as the lesser of two evils, think about who can do the greater good. And in that way, even with your if you do three candidates, who can do the greater good? Who realistically is going to be able to do the greater good? To me, that's a clear vote for Harris. Even because Stein's not getting in, we
Hmm.
know that. And Trump, well, we know what Trump's done, right? We've already seen that. So if you're picking the candidate that can do the greater good, why not then vote for Harris? I'm not saying that she can't do wrong. I'm not saying that what's going on in Gaza is not problematic. And so, but I'm just saying if you rephrase it and reframed it that way, is it still going to Stein?
Yeah. I mean, her running mate, I mean, he has a lot of background around the things I care about. And he's like very forward for human rights. He's very forward about talking about his understanding of systematic racism, the effects of imperialism, social justice activism. I mean, like, he is a very grassrooty person. And I know we vote for the president elect, not for their vice president. Um, but I think in general, when it comes to a candidate who embodies the things I care about, it's neither Harris nor Trump. It would be closer to Stein, and she's not perfect. Um, but their platform really does emphasize environmental justice and social equity. And like they really believe in peace, and like I am like a peace, love, and happiness sort of person.
Okay, so even though you feel like Jill is not the less or not the lesser of two evils, but the one who could do greater good, what about, and I mentioned this before and I'm gonna go back to it. I feel like Trump is an existential issue. He presents an existential crisis for the country. Why not just delay your vote, your third party vote, until after he's kind of out of the picture, assuming that he loses and he actually goes away? Um, it just seems like this is a particularly critical election. And I know they say that all the time, right? Like every election's critical, but this really feels dangerous. So why not just delay it? Since you know your vote's not really going to, she's not going to get elected. Why not wait till the next 4 years?
Because that's part of the problem. We keep delaying and then we keep looking for immediate gratification as a society. Like we're like, I mean, Americans are like, we are a stereotype, right? What's the stereotype of an American? Tell me what you think a stereotype of an American is.
What is it? I'm trying to think. Loves music, very self-centered, perhaps. Rich, or at least wants a lot of money. I'm just thinking about when I went abroad. But there's a sense that we have a lot of wealth over here. There is that sense that
Mhm,
we're wealthy, and into entertainment.
mhm,
Don't know many languages,
mhm.
so
We're
kind
just gonna stick with
of.
those 3 things, right? Let's say we're self-centered, we're greedy, like, we want money, that's what we're centered around money. And there was a 3rd thing you said. Self-centered, we want a lot of.
Languages because we just don't.
Oh, okay, and we have, like, a xenophobic mindset, right? Like, yeah, okay. So, thinking about those things and thinking about our political system, um, and how we approach elections, like, we're self-centered. We want what we want. We want what we want. We want what we think is going to better us. We're not concerned about other Americans. We're not concerned about our neighbors. We're not thinking that the president that we elect is not only going to implement policy that affects us, but it's going to affect our neighbors. And guess what? That impacts us because that's the person living next to us. right? Like that's our community. And so I think part of our issue with voting is we are self-centered. We're worried about ourselves. We're not thinking about it as a community or as a people. I also think like we have become an incredibly greedy society, and we have really embraced like capitalism. We've really embraced this idea that like money can pay for fixing our problems. And I think we're always trying to figure out the next get rich scheme or the next hustle or the next passive income opportunity. And like we're always trying to take on more and get more, and we're not really concerned about the ripple effect of that action. You know, like I think about this all the time when I look at housing developments that are popping up in the area that I live in and where they're being built. I mean, even when we think about the devastation we've encountered from natural disasters recently, how many homes are devastated because they're built in areas that are like literally storm pathways. They're built in areas that are lowlands. They're built in areas that were swamps that they filled in and they just don't have great infrastructure. And we do this in attempt to make more money quickly without thinking about the impact that it has on the people who buy those homes, and therefore the impact that it has on our collective insurance, right? Because these people are going to file their insurance, which is going to drive everybody's insurance up without really thinking about it. And we're continually doing things without thinking about the long-term effect. And then, you know, we don't speak a lot of languages. Like we have this sort of everything foreign is foreign, everything American is like English and white and like maybe classy trashy, you know, like that's like the new thing.
Classy
Um,
trashy.
classy trashy, you know, like classy park, kind of
I've never heard of that.
like Von Dutch or I don't even know, but like you know, like when I think of Americans, I think of like I think of like gluttonous or
I was trying not to say that like fat and overweight, just all of that
yeah,
stuff. But that's
yeah,
like literal, but also in a very figurative sense, just kind of
exactly.
overindulge. But when you said some of the stuff
Overindulgent.
you said,
Entertainment, you said. We always wanna be entertained. Um,
yes, but I think that's also part of how do you have people engage in this capitalist society in the way that you have to sort of anesthetize us with entertainment. So, like back with the Roman Empire, with the bread wars, they would put out this entertainment to sort of distract people from the fact that there was other issues going on. And I
mhm,
think entertainment is the same way here. It's kind of like if I can entertain you, then you're not really focused as much as you should be on other political and policy issues. And I
mhm,
know you mentioned about how there are a lot of selfish and self-centered way that we vote, but I mean that's capitalism, right? I think it was Adam Locke, yeah, who said the I should know this, but capitalism thrives on greed, right?
mhm. Absolutely.
Right. So greed is something that is fueled by self-centeredness, right?
Mhm,
Selfishness. And we
mhm,
all want to thrive in a capitalist society. So the greedier you are, which means the more selfish you are, the better
mhm,
you'll do. And so it's just part of who we are. We're not meant as a community. We the rugged individualism. We pride ourselves, or we pride the individual over the community. And
mm-mm.
we think that that makes sense, but no individual lives by themselves. We live in
Right.
you're born literally into a family.
Yes.
America does not really sort of value that. And it's now I think that's what's coming where society is falling apart in the way that it is. And but again, I go back to the third party. So then couldn't as you were saying, I was like, but wouldn't that be what a third party vote is? Is kind of more selfish than thinking collectively. Wouldn't a collective way of voting say, let's make sure that Trump does not get back into office because of the rippling effects of what he would do is
Listen,
harmful
I have
for
to have a little bit of faith in all of the millions of dollars that Harris raised for her campaign and all of the advertising and campaign stops she's making and all of the people she's rallying, and that Trump has created so much division that he's actually screwing himself. I mean, even that comedian saying that Puerto Rico was a floating island of trash. I mean, he definitely lost Latino votes in that statement alone. And, you know, like, I guess I have to have faith a little bit that there are enough people who are going to vote for Kamala that like my one little vote can go towards that 5% to hopefully get us to an alternative to this two-party system. I mean, I wish Harris could say like, hey, one of the things I would like to do is do ranked voting, right? So like I would love ranked voting. I mean, I could get behind Harris if she said she wanted to do that, right? If your first candidate doesn't win, then your next candidate gets pushed up, elevated up. There's just
Or just get
I
rid of
love
the
to
electoral
use that word
college.
through I'm sorry.
I said, and get rid of the electoral college because that's
Yes,
also problematic.
the electoral college is a freaking mess too. Like, there's so many systematic things that are in place to keep us disenfranchised that my vote for a third party candidate is not going to continue this disenfranchisement. You know what I mean? Like, I hear you, and I know that this is a really important election, but so is our democratic system. It's really important. And in order for it to continue to be democratic, we have to vote as we intend to vote, not as we feel forced to vote.
No, I mean that's legit, and that's definitely what I hear from people others who want to go third party. It's like I can't be forced into this two-party system. They just push back against, as you said, they're pushing back against this idea that I have to vote for one or the other, or I'm hurting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, for your sake, I hope you're right that Harris still prevails because I'm very clear I'm not going for Trump. I think he's,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, he is very problematic and dangerous. And I think he's going to be dangerous even if he loses,
Even if
especially
he loses, he's going to be dangerous. I mean, he might be arguably more dangerous if he loses, just
right.
because there are going to be so many people who are going to say, "Oh, it's fixed." I mean, listen, regardless of what the outcome is, both parties are going to say it's fixed. Harris is going to say, "Oh, Elon Musk, he has been so influential in Trump's campaign. Like, how do we know he hasn't influenced electronic ballots some way?" And Trump is going to say, oh, Harris has forged the numbers and fixed the polls, and all those mail in votes are fraudulent. And I mean, it's going to be a thing either way. The only thing is, the base for Trump, if he's not elected, are going to be looking for a reason to
Violent.
want to fight. Yes.
Right. I believe, and not again, it's not hyperbolic. It literally
No,
happened.
that literally
I'm not
will
talking
happen.
about what may have. This is what happened.
Yep.
They were unorganized last time. This time,
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know. And so that's, to me, again,
Ooh.
that's the difference. Is like this man is actually anti-democratic. I don't think he should even be allowed to run for office, given what he did. But the
Mm-hmm.
Supreme Court unanimously allowed him to be on the ballot in those states. So again, for your sake, I hope that what you're trying to do is achieved without having any kind of sway or anything that leads toward Trump winning.
Ooh.
But we'll see. Have you voted yet?
I have not. I will be voting on Tuesday on election day.
Well, I hope you get a chair and some snacks or whatever
I
you need.
I know.
You're gonna be in line for a minute.
I hope not. I don't know. I voted on election days prior, and it hasn't been an issue. I voted early last year, though. I could go tomorrow. We'll see. I might
Oh,
go tomorrow.
today was our last day for where I am.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, and I voted last week.
Good for you.
Ain't nobody playing. Ain't nobody playing.
Get
Okay.
your vote done. No, I plan on going Tuesday with my husband. I'm still trying to get him to vote. I don't know who he's going to vote for.
As long as he votes, like he fought that we could vote. So like make sure
Yes.
he's out there and vote.
Yeah.
And thank him for his service.
Thank you so much. I will.
Yeah. Any last words? Try to help this collective action problem that I see, but
I think we have to really mobilize collectively. I think you're absolutely right. It is a collective action problem. I think we have taken too much of a backseat, and we're just kind of going with the flow. But I also think we're allowing other people to write our narratives. I think that especially now with the power of AI, how quickly any one person can put in a prompt and ask for multiple variations of a same story. And those stories could be fabricated and create a whole narrative or perspective that actually doesn't exist. I think we're in a real state of disinformation. I think it's really important to know what you stand for and to like really stand behind that. Because if you don't, like, things are not going to change. Like, the machine is going to keep running. And I definitely think that Trump represents that machine. And it's not something that I want my children to have to navigate through. And, you know, Harris and Waltz, I mean, man, like, it's funny with both of these presidential candidates and their vice presidents. I actually like their running mates more than I like the candidates.
You like Vance?
More than I like Trump? Fuck yeah. I
Oh,
don't like Vance, but do I
oh,
like him more than I like Trump? 150%. 150%.
I don't like any of them, but I understand. Okay, I thought you were just saying you like Vance. Okay.
No, 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 no. I'm saying I like Vance more than I like Trump, and I like Waltz more than I like Harris. I like the vice presidential candidates more than I like the presidential candidates, truthfully. But you know, neither one of them are my cup of tea, and so my vote will go to Stein. And I, you know, and like you said, like, there's nothing perfect about any of the candidates. You know, Stein has a 100% renewable energy initiative that she wants to implement by 2035. Um, and I respect it, but I also feel like that probably could be something that could be drawn out a little bit longer. You know, like, I think that, I don't know. I think that there's just other elements to her campaign too that I don't love, but I love the idea of us collectively moving to see an alternative on stage in upcoming elections sooner than later, more than I think that my vote towards continuing the administration we're currently in. I don't. Tell me, Brooke, what do we walk away from this last administration? Now, granted, I know the pandemic happened.
What you talking about? What to walk away from the Biden Harris
Yeah.
administration? I mean, there's student forgiveness, student debt forgiveness. Like my father had all his loans forgiven.
Well, good for him.
My parents were able to lower their healthcare costs because of whatever some of the policies that he's doing. So he's doing things behind the scene that I think they actually just have. I think the Democrats in general have a PR problem. Like, first of all, there's no reason why Trump trying to overthrow the government was not something that's just blasted all the time. Like,
It was blasted all the time.
blasted even more so. At least I haven't seen it up here where I am. Maybe because you're in a different state than I'm in. But I just think that that's something that every time you try to speak, no, didn't you try to overturn the government? Aren't you
Mhm.
anti-democratic? Aren't you a
But here's
dictator?
the thing too, that I think has impacted that. I don't think there's, like, American pride anymore. Remember how we used to say, like, the Pledge of Allegiance in schools and
No,
sing "God Bless America" and all that stuff?
I have not stood for the Pledge of Allegiance since the 90s. But I was different. That's why when Kaepernick was doing, I was like, sir, I've been about
I've
this.
been doing this, like, yeah, I've
I've been
taken
doing
it
this.
before,
I'm
taking
not
it
new
really
to this. I'm
popular.
true to this, and it's gotten me in trouble. But that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
Um, no, I mean, I feel like when we grew up, we were taught songs like, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. As an adult, I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm a Negro in America. I know that's not the case. I don't think the issue is American pride. I think there's a little too much pride if you think that this white nationalism.
That's white nationalism, that's not American pride. That's
That's
white
to me,
nationalism.
that to me is it's often conflated, and I don't know. Sometimes I don't understand the difference between the two. I'm sure there are people who are like, oh no, this could, but to me, historically, as I'm looking, I'm like, they often kind of look very similar. So I think there is a lot of whatever you want to call that pride, arrogance, white nationalism going on. And again, I don't know why the Democrats aren't at least promoting that as a problem. at least trying to assume what you're saying, that this is actually antithetical to what we stand for. I would argue it's not, but nevertheless, you could still put it out there as the PR branding. I mean, just the Democrats, I think, just do a poor job of that, and
It's
so
so funny because that's what I would think they would be good at. Like, if you asked me what Democrats would be good at, I would be like, "Oh,
you would
branding,
think
like
because they have
being in
people
trend."
who are Democrats who work in that field, and I don't think they are. I think the Republicans are far more disciplined when it comes to being on topic and staying consistent with the messaging. They do for better or worse, they do a good job with that. They're going to align with each other and they're going to keep the talking points going. And that's why I think they're as successful as they are. And the Democrats are kind of, well, I think you also have people who are like all over the place. Like you're a Democrat. I'm not actually a registered Democrat. I'm a registered independent. But you're Democrat, but then you're going green, and then you have so you have kind of like this going on. Whereas in the Republican part, well, now I would actually they are kind of bifurcated between the party of Trump and then the Republicans. But even still, they all coalesce. Those who still are with the party, they can coalesce around the cause very quickly. That's why someone like Mitch McConnell, who allowed Trump to get impeached, and yet nothing ever happened with that. He just sort of backtracked because they were all on mission together. I don't think the Democrats would do that, which I'm not mad at that because I think that's actually standing on principle if they didn't. But nevertheless, I think the Democrats have a PR problem, and so I don't know. They need to do a better job. I say they because again, I am not one of them. I'm independent. Because that's a whole other conversation about why I'm not a Democrat, but I still vote largely Democratic, but I don't want to align myself with the party in general for other reasons. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if you have any other closing thoughts. I'm going to bring you back so we can talk about these Elon Musk rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah, I could go down that. Like, I don't know if you ever heard about the 15-minute cities. Have you
No.
heard this theory?
No.
Well, I don't believe they're gonna be like 15-minute cities the way people have outlined them, but I do believe that they're gonna be like Amazon cities and Tesla cities. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, I mean, like, they've been conditioning us for that for a long time.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We're going to have to come back and unpack,
Mhm.
revise our B&B conspiracy hour that we started during the Pandarosa.
I know, I miss it. I wish we could have, continued, but we shall continue now that,
Yeah.
I am
But
not with child or nursing or doing all of those things that mamas do.
I know, but your children are so lovely and beautiful.
Thank
So
you, but if you have not yet got out to vote, regardless of who you vote for, please,
please vote.
use your very hard-earned, right to vote, and yeah, I hope when we come back together that it is not a Trump fans presidency, but in case it is, we will get through it. Nothing is forever.
That is true. And I hope we do get through it. It's just like,
Mhm.
what does getting through it mean? What does that look like? Because you can go through an explosion and get through it, but
That's true.
you're missing a limb. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to be intact here,
Yeah,
but we'll see. But I like your hope. We'll
thank you.
get through it. Everything will be everything will be well. So we got
Thank
to keep the hope. Go out and vote, like she said. I've
you.
already voted. B's voting on Tuesday.
Mhm,
We'll see. We'll be watching and praying Tuesday night. All right. Thank you
mhm.
so much for joining me, B. This is a great
Thank you so
conversation.
much for having me. It was wonderful, as always.
And we'll have you back soon. Is there any way for people if you want them to follow you or any information?
Yeah, if you, are not a troll, and you would like to follow me, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Canatherapy RVA. One of the things that I do is I talk about plant medicine, and I do, sound and naturopathic healing, and you can definitely follow me on Instagram. I will be honest, I am working on developing my social media presence. I am not incredibly present person on social media, although I do like looking at other people's posts and stuff. I just have to continue to put myself out there to more.
Right.
And you can find me on TikTok underneath the handle Med Medicine Woman.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely. Thank you for joining us. Until we meet again.
Thank you, Professor Girley. Good night.
Good night. Bye. Bye, everyone.